Remote sensing is defined by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration as obtaining information about objects or an area from a distance. Remote sensing is the link between photography and Earth systems. It is used by weather services, militaries, governments, and even citizen scientists. Remote sensing has been around for hundreds of years, but it's not always been satellites and drones. In 1827, Napisi took the first photograph of a garden outside his window. The exposure time was over 8 hours. By 1858, a man named Nagar took the idea to take the first aerial photo of Paris using a hot air balloon, thus sparking what would be the framework for remote sensing. Nagar's voyage was replicated during the Civil War with the mapping of terrains, then once again during the World Wars, but with planes monitoring the movement of platoons. By 1957, the space race had begun with Sputnik 1, and remote sensing expanded beyond the reach of the Earth's atmosphere. Today, there are over 3,000 satellites still in orbit. Each satellite, sensor, and drone has a purpose and multiple ways of recording information, such as a radiometer, spectrometer, and laser. Satellites are categorized as active and passive, with active being a satellite that transmits openly to and from Earth, such as a GPS, and passive, such as a one-way weather satellites. A spectrometer is used to measure wavelengths of radiation to create pictures of surface temperatures, vegetation, or cloud patterns. Laser altimeters are used commonly by companies such as Google for their Google Earth project. From the private to the public sector, remote sensing has produced advances in science, military, and government. From within the field of science, remote sensing has been used to measure CO2 amounts in the atmosphere, the thickness of the ozone layer, and the mapping of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. The military has been using remote sensing since the early 1900s with the Bavarian Pigeon Corps, which were pigeons who had cameras on their chests to spy on enemy troops. Nowadays, we have thermal cameras on drones that are used regularly by the military to aid in executing ambushes. Around the world, remote sensing is used to aid in disaster relief, mapping oil spills, counting animal populations, and tracking wildfires. NASA has been a large contributor to the remote sensing with the launch of the Television Infrared Observation Satellite in the April of 1960, which allowed for the studying of global weather patterns such as hurricanes. Later, NASA's newer satellites would be used to track the movements of the Earth's surface, such as earthquakes and other geological events. Companies such as Google, Apple, and Garmin have launched their own satellites to transmit information about data usage, current locations, and traffic patterns. From a singular photograph out of a hot air balloon, to cameras on pigeons, to discovering Mayan ruins, to measuring the rate that glaciers move, remote sensing has evolved to be an invaluable resource. Geologists, farmers, intelligence agencies, and meteorologists have all relied on remote sensing at some point in their careers.